Title: We Are Family. Subtitle: Building the Kind of Church Where Love is More Than a Word. Author: Clarence W. Copyright: June 2025. Published in the United States of America. Introduction: We are family. As a congregation of God's people, or a church family, we exist for at least three key reasons. First, we stand for doctrinal accuracy. We are committed to upholding God's truth, or what I like to call that good old book, chapter, and verse foundation. Second, we exist to build one another up spiritually, encourage one another, and ensure no one walks alone. Third, we exist to support one another during the inner struggles of the heart. You know, all those battles that go unseen but weigh heavily on our souls. In this brief book, we will focus on the second of these, looking out for one another's spiritual good, because faith was never meant to be a solo journey. We live in a country where the population easily exceeds 320 million people. Yet, loneliness remains at uncomfortably high levels. People are surrounded by people, but still feel invisible. They scroll through endless social media feeds, yet struggle to find a single person who truly knows them. I think you know, as well as I do, that God has a better plan for man here and hereafter. The enemy has sown the corrupt seed of loneliness. From the very beginning, God made it clear. It is not good for man to be alone. Genesis 2, verse 18. He created us for connection. Not just proximity, not just casual interactions, but deep, life-giving relationships. And yet, many today remain emotionally and spiritually isolated, aching for something more. The paradox is that this something more exists in abundance, but people have not been taught, supported, nurtured, and trained in how to get it. Here's where the local church family comes in. We stand in contrast to the world. The world is full of surface-level relationships in which people are objects to be used and manipulated for the good of industry, profits, and greed. But the family of God is meant to be different. In Hebrews 10:24, we are told to consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds. Hebrews 10 verse 24. That means that we are looking for ways to build others up. We are looking for ways to draw out the best in one another, because we know it is there, and we know it leads to their greatest joy. Hebrews 10 verse 24 is about making connections that heal, encourage, and strengthen. It is not about relationships that are used just for our own selfish benefit, but relationships in which we teach one another how to live in love within a supportive church family. So, in this book, we lean into the training. We look at what it means to love our church family at a biblical level. We explore how our love for one another propels us forward both individually and as a congregation to something greater. When you think of your church family, I do not want you to just think of a friendly group. I want you to truly experience your church family as the most loving, welcoming, and uplifting group of people you've ever known, not just in words, but in the way you live and love together. Chapter 1. Love, the foundation of a thriving church family. When Jesus was asked about the greatest commandment, he gave a response that was profound and deeply practical. And he said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." Matthew 22 verses 37 to 39. In a few words, Jesus summarized God's plan, love. In fact, John would tell us that God is love. Love is not just a sentimental idea. Love is not a minor detail. Love is the very core of who God is and who God's people are. That's not just something we do. It is who we are. We were made to give love. That is the secret Jesus revealed in Acts 20 verse 35, saying, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." Most people go through life searching for love, hoping others will just freely give it to them. They never understood the message that a man reaps what he sows. So, many people never learn to truly sow seeds of love in other people. That is why so many people have lives that leave them feeling empty. They know how to manipulate people. They know how to cajole, coax, and sweet-talk people. They know how to invest minimum wage into a relationship and then can't figure out why they are not getting top-notch expert results. They know how to play the social game at a very shallow level, but they never learn to sincerely love at the selfless depth that brings about the realization that it is more blessed to give than to receive. According to recent research reported by Cross River Therapy, 52% of Americans report feeling lonely. 47% report their relationships with others are not meaningful. That was never God's intention. That is the result of the corrupt seed sown by Satan and the result of people trying to direct their own steps. If we want to truly experience love, then we must embrace what we were created to do. We must selflessly love others with the same selfless love with which God loves us. We must learn to let the love of God for others flow through us with all its joys and pain. That is the process of sowing the seeds of love that will bring more of the harvest we desire. However, let me remind you that when the sower went forth to sow seed, only 1/4 of the soil brought forth fruit. You must learn to sow love even knowing that 3/4 of it may never take root. And yet, when you love this way, you will experience the truth of Jesus' words when he said, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." When you get this right, then when you win, and when you lose, you still win at a spiritual level. Let's look closer at what Jesus said when he said, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself." In between the lines, Jesus tells us that before we can love others well, we must have a healthy love for ourselves. Now, this is not about self-centered love or vanity. Jesus is talking about something entirely different. Bible self-love is about accepting who God created you to be and finding your deepest fulfillment in being God's creation. One of the reasons so many people live lives never feeling truly connected is, as someone once said, you can't give away what you don't have. If you do not have a healthy sense of self-worth as a child of God, it will be difficult to love others in a way that is life-giving and strong. You will muddle by, paying minimum wage, expecting expert results. Life doesn't work that way. If you invest in others at a minimum wage level, don't expect expert level returns. Think about relationships that struggle. Often, the issue isn't a lack of desire to love. It's a lack of understanding how to love. They are dealing with wounds, insecurities, or fears that prevent them from loving others fully. Many people are still trapped in their long-ago past. And while relationships may survive in less than favorable conditions, survival is not the same as thriving. Just because a relationship endures, that doesn't mean it's filled with the kind of love we desire and the kind God intended. Healthy, biblical love doesn't just make relationships bearable, it makes them thrive. It encourages people to grow, to reach for higher ground, and to become the best version of themselves. It is not about control, obligation, or duty. It's about genuine care that delights in the success of others. It is the kind of love that truly celebrates when others excel. Think about a wind beneath the wings of a soaring bird. That's what love does. It lifts, supports, and empowers others. Look at Hebrews 10 verse 24. Again, it reads, "Consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds." That is about being the wind beneath the wings of another. Love is not passive. It is supportive, giving, reaching out, encouraging, and strengthening others. It is a wonderful act of selflessly serving others. Imagine a congregation so overflowing with this kind of love that it becomes contagious. Imagine a congregation so overflowing with this love that when people walk through the doors, they don't just hear about love, they feel it. They see it in the way we serve one another, speak to one another, and encourage each other towards something greater. This is what makes a good church family different from the world. The world's version of love is commonly transactional. In other words, it's not much different than a business transaction. God's love does not work that way. God's love is selfless. As Jesus said, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. Matthew 20, verse 28. If we want to see our relationships deepen, both in our church family and in our daily lives, we must understand God's design. Instead of waiting for others to love us, we must become initiators of love. Instead of offering others only crumbs of our attention and expecting a great return for our mediocre effort, we must learn to selflessly pour out love as God poured out His love on us. We joyfully look for ways to build people up, to encourage them, and to support them in their spiritual journey, and take as our only payment our delight in seeing them excel. So, here's the challenge. This week, how can you actively show love? Who in your life needs to be lifted up? Maybe it's a fellow church member. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's someone who just needs to be reminded that they matter. Whatever it is, take action. Because love, true biblical love, is a verb, and it is what makes a church family strong. Chapter 2. Love in Action. Love is not just a suggestion in the Christian life. Rather, it is deeply personal to God. Jesus makes this clear in Matthew 25, saying, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it for one of the least of these brothers or sisters of mine, you did it for me." Matthew 25, verse 40. And the opposite is also true. To the extent that you did not do it for one of the least of these, you did not do it for me either. Matthew 25, verse 45. This passage should shake us to our core. Whether we treat one another with kindness or neglect, God takes it personally. That means our love, or lack of love, toward our brethren is not just a matter of social etiquette or friendliness. It is a reflection of our relationship with God Himself. I think we all understand this instinctively at another level. Just ask any parent how they feel when someone mistreats their child. The quickest way to wound a parent is to hurt their son or daughter. That's the kind of protective love God has for His children, and that's why Jesus connects our treatment of others directly to our relationship with Him. Many read this passage and immediately think of meeting physical needs, feeding the hungry, clothing the poor, visiting the sick. And yes, those things are important. But if we stop there, we miss the deeper principle. What about those people who are starving in spirit? What about the loneliness that gnaws at a person's soul? What about that horrible feeling of being kicked to the curb and discarded by society? What about the emotional wounds and past baggage that keep a person imprisoned in their past? What about the ones who feel like life has kicked them to the curb and they feel rejected, abandoned, discarded? Maybe you've felt that way before. Maybe you know someone who's living in that place right now. These are the ones starving for love, and too often, they go unnoticed. Physical needs are a small part of loving others. Sadly, physical needs dominate in the minds of most people. How easily we forget that a person can have all their physical needs met and still be starving for love. The world is full of people who have a roof over their heads, clothes to wear, and food to eat, and yet they are completely malnourished spiritually. These are the needs that food and clothing cannot answer. Loving others is about so much more than their physical needs. But addressing physical needs is the easiest and most obvious thing to do. God's design for the family goes so much deeper. His idea of a church family is not just being in the building together on Sunday mornings. A church family nurtures one another in God's love. A church family helps to clothe each other in God's love. A church family helps one another find freedom from the wounds of their past. Members of a church family are not mere acquaintances, but people that develop deep relationships and share a spiritual journey together. And, I might add, that journey is far more than talking about why we are doctrinally correct and other groups are doctrinally wrong. I agree that we must know the truth and we must set boundaries, but there is so much more that God intends for us to do within those boundaries. Let's make this as plain as possible. If we are too busy for our brethren, we are too busy for God. If we are distant from our brethren, we are distant from God. If we are disinterested in our brethren, we are disinterested in God. We cannot have a deep and loving relationship with God while remaining distant from His children. It doesn't work that way. Our brethren are a vital link in our connection with God. We can't separate the two. If we truly want to learn to walk with God, then we also learn to walk with one another. This changes how we see our local church family. This is not just a weekly gathering. It's not just a duty to bear. The local church family includes assembling for worship, but there is more. It's more than a place and time. It is a family where we pour into one another's lives and learn the blessing that it is more blessed to give than to receive. Church family is where we overlap in ways that bring about the blessing of Proverbs 27, where Solomon says, God made us in His image, and He calls us to love others as He loves, not just in words or shallow band-aid type actions, but in deep, meaningful, and transformative ways. That is iron sharpening iron. And when we step into this ministry of love, we don't just help others, we walk with them into transformation and blessings that they have not anticipated. Think about what happens when someone truly believes they are loved. They stand taller. They walk with confidence. They are more willing to step out and use their talents. They start believing that they can be the person God made them to be. They stop hating and rejecting themselves and realize they are not what the wounded world told them they were. That's what a healthy church family does. It inspires people to wake up slowly and reach for higher ground, to overcome sin, past burdens, and to embrace the potential God has planted within each heart. A healthy church family encourages each member to take the driver's seat of their life and explore the journey ahead as they walk in agreement with God. I must say it is a wonderful idea that many have dreamed of, but few have experienced it at the most glorious depths because the way to victory is contrary to almost everything the world has told us. Pause and try to imagine a church family where every member was committed to being the wind beneath someone else's wings. Imagine the joy that grows when people find their greatest joy in lifting others up, and their happiness is rejoicing in the excelling of their brothers and sisters. That is what transforms church from a have to a get to. That is what transforms church from an added burden to an already overwhelmed life, to a blessing that makes the burdens of life feel lighter. Imagine if every person in this congregation was the wind beneath someone else's wings. What if every person who walked through these doors felt lifted up, strengthened, encouraged? Can you picture the joy, the energy, the transformation? That's what love does. It begins with giving. So, who will you lift up this week? Who needs to know they matter? Think of their name right now. And then take action. Send the text. Make the call. Show up. Because love isn't just a feeling. Love is action. And when we love like this, then our church family becomes unstoppable. Chapter 3. Love that identifies us as Christ's people. Jesus gave His disciples a simple command. I am giving you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. John 13 verses 34 to 35. I find it fascinating that love is not merely encouraged or suggested, but rather it is commanded. And not just any kind of love. Jesus didn't say, love each other when it's convenient, or love those who love you back. He set the standard at, as I have loved you. That is a high calling. Jesus' concept of the church is not a group of people who casually see each other at a worship assembly, exchange a polite hello in the foyer, and then go on their way. His vision is far deeper. The church is meant to be a family bound together by the same selfless, sacrificial love He demonstrated. Notice, Jesus does not say, make sure you are loved. He does not tell us to focus on getting love. Instead, He commands us to give love. He tells us to love as He has loved us. If we focus on giving this depth of love, then the receiving part will take care of itself. But tragically, some get stuck on the receiving part. They focus on what they're not getting. They feel unloved, unnoticed, or underappreciated. They say, no one cares about me. And what happens? They fall into self-pity. They withdraw, and they grow bitter. Instead of pouring out love, they sit back, waiting for others to pour love into them. And in doing so, they violate the very commandment of Christ. Forgetting oneself and pouring out love anyway, that is one of the great challenges of Christianity. It requires trust. It requires faith that God sees you, even when others don't. And it requires understanding that love is not a transaction. Love is about learning to imitate Christ. Let's look at verse 35 again. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. John 13 verse 35. This command is not just about our well-being, it is also about our witness. The world is watching. Jesus intended for His church to be the living proof of His love. When people look at us, they should see something so radically different from the world's version of relationships that they can't help but take notice. But here's the problem. Many people today want nothing to do with religion. Why? Because when they look at religious groups, they don't see this kind of love. What do they see? They see bickering and division over trivial matters. They see people quick to point fingers but slow to offer help. They see selfishness and the common fear that someone else might get something more. Jesus knew this would happen. That's why he gave this command. Because if we don't love each other the way he loves us, the world has no reason to believe we belong to him. When the world sees love, they will hunger for it. Jesus understands something that many Christians miss. True love is magnetic. When people see a church family that genuinely loves each other, where members inspire one another to reach for higher ground, some of those people on the outside will want to be on the inside. When they see a congregation that lifts up the fallen instead of kicking them while they're down, some people will long to be a part of that church family. When they see a church family that rejoices in bringing out the best in one another, they will want to be a part of that, too. If we want to reach the lost, it won't be through better advertising. It won't be through more programs. It will be through authentic love. Thus, we read in the Bible, consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds. Hebrews 10 verse 24. If we grow in this kind of love, then we will see something remarkable. Not only will we be stronger as a church family, but more and more lost souls will begin to look to us searching for the salvation and love they so desperately need. Why? Because love, real biblical love, is undeniable. So what about us? Are we giving love or just hoping to receive it? Are we living this love in a way that draws others toward Christ? If someone on the outside looked in, would they see Jesus in the way we love? Let's be honest. The world is full of self-centered, shallow relationships. The church is called to something greater. So, what will we do with this command? Who needs to see Jesus in the way we love? This week, who will you choose to love? Not because they deserve it, not because it's easy, but because you have chosen to walk with Jesus and love who he loves. Chapter 4. The Joy of Giving. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Acts 20 verse 35. That is not just a suggestion. It is a principle of spiritual growth, a pathway to deep, unshakable joy. But let's be honest, this is not how most people think. Most people go through life focused on what they can get: attention, love, recognition, comfort, validation. And when they don't receive what they expected, they feel empty, frustrated, even bitter. They wonder, why isn't anyone pouring love into me? Why don't people notice what I need? But Jesus flips that thinking. He teaches us that true joy doesn't come from what we receive, it comes from what we give. This is a growth process. Just as a newborn baby starts life utterly dependent on others, a new Christian often starts out needing extra attention, encouragement, and support. And that's a good thing. There is joy in nurturing spiritual infants, just like there is joy in nurturing a newborn baby in a physical family. Think about it. When a baby is born, what happens? The entire family lights up. Everyone gathers around, cooing over the little one, delighting in the miracle of new life. Parents pour their whole hearts into their child, sacrificing sleep, time, and energy, not begrudgingly, but joyfully. The same should be true in our spiritual family. We celebrate when someone takes their first steps in faith. We don't expect them to be perfect. Just as a toddler wobbles and falls when learning to walk, a new Christian will stumble. And that's okay. What do loving parents do when a child stumbles? Do they shame them? No. They cheer. They smile. They reach out their hands and say, "Come on, you can do it." And that is exactly how we should respond to one another in the church. We are not a dysfunctional family that tears each other down. We are a loving family that lifts each other up. We see potential in others before they see it in themselves. We encourage, support, and nurture, helping them become the person God created them to be. This is what mature Christians do. We are givers, pouring into others so that they too can grow into givers. One of the great blessings of being a giver is that your joy no longer depends on what others do. Let that sink in for a moment. If my happiness is based on what others give me, then I am at the mercy of other people's kindness, moods, and generosity. If I don't receive the attention or appreciation I think I deserve from others, then my joy vanishes. But if I learn the truth of Acts 20:35, if I truly embrace that giving is greater than receiving, then my joy is unchained. It is no longer dependent on what I get from others. Instead, it is rooted in what I pour out into others. And here's the beautiful reality: you will never run out of opportunities to give. If your joy comes from giving, then you will always have someone to encourage. You will always have someone to serve. You will always have someone who needs love. And that means your joy is endless. This principle changes everything. So, let's take a moment to reflect. Are we living as givers or as consumers? Are we more focused on what we need or on what we can offer? Are we waiting for love or are we actively pouring it out? Some people spend their entire lives waiting for someone to give them the love, support, or encouragement they think they need, and they are miserable. But Jesus offers a better way. Instead of waiting, he calls us to take action. Instead of focusing on what we lack, he calls us to focus on what we can give. Instead of measuring our joy by what we receive, he teaches us to measure it by what we pour out. And here's the irony: the more you pour out, the more you will find yourself filled. So here is the challenge this week. Find someone to encourage. Find someone to pour into. Find someone who needs love and then give it freely. It could be a family member who needs a kind word. It could be a brother or sister in Christ who needs a moment of your time. It could be someone who has been sitting alone in this congregation, wondering if they matter. Be the one who makes a difference. Chapter 5. A love that lifts, heals, and inspires. Christianity is not just about personal faith. It is about relationships, deep, meaningful, life-giving relationships. Paul describes what these relationships should look like, writing, "Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Give preference to one another in honor." Romans 12 verse 10. Later, he wrote, "Bear one another's burdens, and thereby fulfill the law of Christ." Galatians 6 verse 2. And to the Philippians he wrote, "Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility consider one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others." Philippians 2 verses 3 to 4. These verses paint a picture of a church that is more than a gathering. It is a family. Truly restoring New Testament Christianity includes being a healthy church family where we lift each other up, not tear each other down. We correct with love, not condemnation. We inspire one another to grow, rather than standing in each other's way. We are not competing. We are on the same team. This is the kind of love that changes lives. This is the kind of church that does not feel like an added burden, but a place to refresh, learn, grow, and live life at levels that other people only dream about. Paul challenges us to move beyond self-interest. Move beyond tossing out crumbs to bait people in. He challenges us to experience the wonder of living Jesus' teaching that it is more blessed to give than to receive. God's design is not just a moral variation of the world. In the world, when someone succeeds, other people get jealous and undermine their success with snide comments, passive-aggressive statements, or outright opposition. Worldly people feel threatened. Worldly people wonder, why them and not me? It's not fair. But in a healthy church family, people celebrate one another. When one person steps out in faith, others cheer them on. When one member grows in talent, others support and celebrate them. When another member reaches a higher level, they are not envied but supported. Why? Because we are one body. Their success is our success. When my brother or sister develops their gifts, the whole body is blessed. This is why it is not belittling to be the wind beneath someone's wings. Because when we help others rise, we rise with them. Love is not just about celebration. It is also about how we handle failure. Paul said, "Brothers and sisters, if a person is caught in any wrongdoing, you who are spiritual are to restore such a person in a spirit of gentleness." Galatians 6 verse 1. The church is not called to be a place of lynch mobs and shame, nor is it called to be a place of blind tolerance where sin is ignored. It is called to be a place of restoration. Christians are inconsistent sometimes. When a loved one sins, we ache for them. We want others to be patient with them. We pray they will turn back to God. But when it's someone we don't know well, or someone we dislike, we can be quick to condemn. Our attitude can easily be, hang the bum, off with their head. But that is clearly not the way of Christ. Let me give you a simple example. If your toddler is learning to walk and stumbles, bumps into a table, and knocks over a lamp, what do? You rush to make sure they're okay. You pick them up, comfort them, and gently teach them to be careful. Now, if your teenager runs through the house, bumps the table, and breaks a lamp, what happens? They may face punitive consequences, but even then, the goal is correction, not condemnation. You don't pack their bags and kick them out of the house. You discipline them because you love them and you want them to grow. Shouldn't we treat our spiritual family the same way? When the world sees that we don't kick people when they're down, but instead seek to restore, heal, and guide them toward growth, some will be drawn to us. They will see that this is a place where people don't give up on each other. They will see that we don't just talk or throw out a few crumbs to bait people in, but rather we aim to live the love we read about in the Bible. And when love like that overflows, people will take notice. Paul takes this even deeper in Philippians 2. Have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Christ Jesus, who emptied himself by taking the form of a bondservant and being born in the likeness of men. Philippians 2 verses 5 to 7. Christ did not come to be served, but to serve. He humbled himself, pouring out love without demanding anything in return. That is the key to a thriving church. A thriving church is a place where members stop asking, "What's in it for me?" and start asking, "How can I bless someone else?" A thriving church family is a place where members stop seeking love and start pouring out love. How can they do that? They can do that because they have found that the more they freely give love without thinking of themselves, they find more joy than they ever imagined. Jesus showed us the most powerful love is selfless, sacrificial, and overflowing. When we love like that, something amazing happens. If we truly embrace Bible teaching, then we must ask ourselves, when someone stumbles, do we extend a hand or do we turn away? When we pour love into our congregational family until it overflows, we become a place that people are drawn to. When people see us truly lifting each other up, they will hunger for that kind of love. And when we bring them into our family, we won't just show them how to be loved, we will teach them the greatest joy of all, how to give love. So, let's make this practical. This week, encourage someone's growth. Be the wind beneath their wings. Restore someone with love. If someone is struggling, reach out, not with judgment or a lecture, but with grace, a helping hand. Serve and love without expecting anything in return. When we love like Christ loves, we become unstoppable. And when we become that kind of church, we won't have to advertise it. People will see it, they will feel it, and they will want to be part of it. Conclusion. In the end, we decide what kind of church we want to be. Of course, we are not the kind of church family we say we are. We're the kind of church family that we actually are. So, we must ask, are we the kind of church where people feel unseen, overlooked, and disconnected? Or are we the kind of church where love overflows and people feel it the moment they walk through the doors? In this book, we have learned, first, love is the foundation of a thriving church family. Second, love is action that lifts others up, restores, and strengthens. Third, love is our testimony. By our love, the world will know we belong to Christ by the way we love each other. Fourth, love is a choice. We are not here to be passive consumers, but to pour our love into others. And finally, that love lifts up, heals, and inspires. We are not in competition, but rather, we are a family. So let me ask you, who will you love this week? Who needs encouragement? Who needs restoration? Who needs someone to see them, care for them, and remind them they matter? Because here's the truth. The church is either a place where people quietly suffer, or a place where people are lifted up. The difference isn't in the building. The difference is in us. The challenge is to love first, give first, serve first, and be the difference. You have reached the end of the book. If you enjoyed this message, share it on your social media. I believe that together we can make a difference. Thanks for listening. More free audiobooks are available on my YouTube channel, Excelling in Christ. If you are not a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe, and may God bless.